Africa Business News, proudly sponsored by EY.
Coming up on Africa Business News, Tullow Oil woos Turkana locals with car lease contracts, the latest from Southern Africa's resource sector, and Burkina Faso names former foreign minister as transitional president. Stay tuned.
Africa, it is huge, it is diverse, and its business landscape fascinating and dynamic. That's our business, as you know, here on your favorite weekly African business stop. We're joined by Bonnie Tunya in Nairobi and Esther Ubodaga in Lagos. My name is Victor Homoiswana, and this is the Africa Business News. Mambo Bonnie, Kenya and East Africa beaming with lots of business stories as usual. Britam investigation unearthing a scam involving billions of shillings. Staying in Kenya, Bonnie, which is not yet a real oil economy, but like neighboring country Uganda, it has always attracted the attention of Irish oil company Tullow Oil, which company I think has done more for oil exploration across Africa than any other company I know in the past decade. Tullow Oil has been making headlines recently there. Tell me about their breakthrough.
That's right, Victor. Tullow has been making a lot of fuss in this business in Kenya, and the British explorer has stepped up efforts to ease tension between the company and the Turkana residents with an award of 225 million Kenyan shillings car lease contracts to 36 local companies, and protests by locals demanding more jobs and business opportunities at the drilling sites in recent months have crippled operations at 2 blocks where the company is in the process of developing crude deposits. Now, Tullow Oil and partner Africa Oil have struck commercially viable deposits of oil at Lokichar Basin in Turkana, estimated just about 600 million barrels, Victor.
At least they're in the game, but if Kenya is only starting out in oil, it is certainly an established hub when it comes to information and communications technology. And this story is made even bigger, not only by the $1.2 billion to be invested by the company involved as well, IBM. What is it up to this time around?
Well, Victor, as you've rightly put it, ICT and technology, information technology in Kenya is really big business in this part of the world. And the show of confidence by a lot of multinationals setting shop in Kenya is really going to show that there is really, people are saying it is time for Africa. Now, we're talking about the $1.2 billion that have been set up by IBM and not just IBM, but other funders in this space that are coming to set up shop in Kenya. But also, what is important, Victor, that you might note is that there is also all these multinationals that are setting shop have set up local business heads coming from the Kenyan people. So really it's a show of confidence in regard to they're here to stay, and IBM is just one amongst the many.
2 weeks ago, we spoke about Kenya's tourism falling 14% in the first half of this year. Violent attacks in Nairobi, Mombasa and Lamu, prompting Britain, US and France and Australia to issue travel warnings that pushed bed occupancy in hotels to record lows. Does the national carrier Kenya Airways have a plan to recover their losses, Bonnie?
Well, Victor, all week long talking to analysts, Kenya Airways has been a sad story indeed, looking at the sort of numbers they posted. But Victor, the national carrier has hired a financial advisor to help restructure its debt, even as it posted an after-tax loss of 10.45 billion shillings for the first 6 months of September 30th this year. Well, the consultant's brief is to evaluate the balance sheet with emphasis on renegotiating the maturity of loans to reduce the strain that repayment of short-term obligations is causing on the cash flow of the company. But really tough times indeed ahead for Kenya Airways, Victor.
That's the price you pay for growing too fast, maybe, but it is still a big player in the aviation industry in Africa. Thank you, Bonnie Tunya out of Nairobi. We're in Southern Africa next. You're still on Africa Business News. In the headlines of the Southern African region, South Africa's Minister of Transport in a reported tiff with Emirates up to the point of threatening to ground the airline. But we focus on mining in this segment. We move to a story about equity and transparency in extractive industries as Angola takes over the presidency of the Kimberley process from China. Angolan Minister of Geology and Mining Francisca Quiros is currently in China, where he takes over for 1 year. The Kimberley process controls 99% of the international diamonds trade, aiming to prevent conflict diamonds from entering the mainstream rough diamond market. Vedanta Resources, the London-listed diversified mining company, will invest $782 million over the next 3 years to develop an open-pit zinc mine in Hamsburg, South Africa, as well as the conversion of the Scorpion zinc refinery in neighboring Namibia. Last week, Kisha Okuma, CEO of Vedanta Zinc International, chatted to CNBC Africa's Nozipho Mbanjo about the project. Let's take a look.
We are significant players in zinc, and that is our core business. And therefore, I would say, from our perspective, Hamsburg has always been on the radar, and we have done the last 3 years, our entire team of employees along with the project teams, they have done a significant amount of detailing, because this project is not an easy one. Yeah. It has got some challenges over its ore constitution, including the manganese, high manganese, which has been spoken about over the last 5 years, that this project has got significant challenges. And the project team have overcome that with the help of our refinery in Scorpion mines in Namibia, and therefore it's a complementary support created by developing Hamsburg and extracting manganese out of the circuits by the Scorpion refinery, which is basically complementary to each other in terms of supporting the mine coming to fruition.
It certainly sounds like there's a lot hanging on the success of Hamsburg, both in terms of the investment that you've already made and the challenges you've already had to surmount. How significant is this going to be on the Vedanta balance sheet? Is this going to be a game changer for you? And that's essentially the question.
I would say, from our perspective, it's certainly a game changer in the zinc international business, in which our capacities are coming down in Lisheen mines in Ireland, where we are going to close down a mine in the next 1 year time. So it's very important to balance the global capacities by bringing capacity back, and that's what this 250,000 tons expansion of Hamsburg would do. It will bring back that volume into the market, as well as provide further opportunity for the upside, because this is, as you know, this is a 215 million ton ore body having about 15 million tons of metal. So we would see that over the next, this is a life of mine beyond 40 to 50 years. So we see a huge opportunity for us to continue to invest and explore that ore body. And we are very fortunate that we have all the expertise within the in-house in terms of bringing the beneficiation story back to Southern African continent. And we will make sure that most of the metal that is made from here is either given to the local market, which we are already servicing.
We move over to West Africa next. Stay tuned. Esther, we know that MTN is the undisputed leader of the mobile telephony market in Nigeria and some other African countries, but Vodafone is not allowing it to have a free reign. This time around, planning a listing, not in Nigeria, of course, but in Ghana. How big is the Ghanaian Stock Exchange, and how significant is it to the West African economy?
Well, Victor, first of all, Vodafone is not willing to make a move yet. According to the company, it's still studying trends at the Ghana Stock Exchange, and it says it will take a decision at the right time. Now, in terms of how big the Ghanaian Stock Exchange is, now, according to latest figures, the market's capitalization as a percentage of the country's GDP has been put around 13.7%, and right now only about 38 companies are listed on that bourse. I wouldn't say the market is not significant to the West African region, but to some extent it's not so big if you compare it to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, for example. Now, staying in Ghana, Victor, Finance Minister Seth Terkper will present the 2015 budget statement and economic policy to the country's parliament tomorrow. Now, the Finance Minister is expected to outline policies to contain Ghana's rising budget deficit and also aim to stimulate growth in the face of current economic difficulties. Now, the ministry is also expected to come up with measures to check the persistent increase in the general price levels of goods and services for next year.
But in Nigeria, as an oil-producing country, lower international prices of oil mean the federal government has to revise its budget. I read that 50 corporations will be indicted for tax offenses, but the federal government has an even bigger worry.
Well, that's right, Victor, but a plan has been put in place. The Nigerian government has announced a number of measures to cushion the economy from falling oil prices. The country's Minister of Finance at a press conference over the weekend said the 2015-2017 medium-term expenditure framework, which was currently submitted to the National Assembly, has been revised. Now, the MTF, which had proposed a benchmark of $78 per barrel for oil for the 2015 budget, has been revised downwards to $73 per barrel. and will be resubmitted to the National Assembly for approval.
And finally, Burkina Faso has named former Foreign Minister Michael Kafando as the transitional president.
Yes, Victor. Now, the announcement, which was made on Monday, is seen as a key step towards returning the West African country to a democracy in the wake of the brief military takeover. Now, Kafando, who was once an ambassador at the former French colony at the United Nations and a former president of the Security Council, was chosen as part of an agreement reached after longtime President Blaise Compaoré fled the country on October the 31st following mass protests. Now, a committee drawn from the army, traditional and religious groups, civil society and the political opposition selected him from among 5 candidates after a closed-door meeting that lasted several hours last Sunday.
At this point, before we wrap up the show, we ask our 2 anchors in Nairobi and in Lagos to pick a stock out of their region. And as I say, Bonnie and Esther, I have $10,000 to invest in your region. Which share would you ask me? Would you advise me to invest in and why? Let's start with you, Esther.
Well, I think at this point I will take Diamond Bank. The Tier 2 lender posted impressive full-year 2013 numbers. It also continued that momentum in the first quarter of this year. Now, the Tier 2 lender also has a strong retail focus, which has been its strongest point. So going forward, I think it has very good potential for returns to investors.
A bank out of West Africa. How about you, Bonnie Tunya in Nairobi?
Well, Victor, this time around, I'll go with the real estate sector. I mean, Home Africa stock has been doing favorably well. The stock was up just about 8%, selling at a share price of 4 shillings and 50 cents. Looking at the reduction in the cost of materials right now, the surge in property, I mean, that's a good place to put your money. So my 10,000 would go definitely to Home Africa.
Home Africa real estate in East Africa and a bank out of West Africa. Well, this week's trivia takes us back to North Africa, to a country which celebrates its Independence Day on November 18th. Which African country, Bonnie and Esther, do you think this is? There are not many countries in North Africa, so that should make your guess a lot easier.
Algeria?
Algeria? No, you're left with 4. Come on now.
Morocco?
Morocco, that's it. A constitutional monarchy with an elected parliament as well. Morocco claims control over Western Sahara as well, which gained independence from Spain on November 18th in 1956. Morocco, whose political capital is Rabat, has a population of just over 33 million. You might remember this country, whose other major cities include its largest city, Casablanca, Marrakesh, and Tangier. It was recently banned from the next 2 African Cup of Nations tournaments for refusing to host the 2015 version of the soccer competition to determine the champions of Africa. We will not be seeing the likes of Abdelaziz Barada or Marwan Chamakh in Equatorial Guinea next year for the soccer, which is a blow because the economy of Morocco depends a lot on tourism. But for November 18th, we say Happy Independence Day to the people of Morocco and of Western Sahara. That's all we have time for today, folks. Here with Bonnie Tunya in Nairobi and Esther Ubodaga out of Lagos. Thank you very much for tuning in. Stay tuned to CNBC Africa. We're back with you next week with more Africa business news. Until then, kwaherini mabibi na mabwana.